All right. Happy Marathon Monday, runners, marathoners out there, wannabe marathoners, aspire marathoners. Everything is just Marathon Monday centric. I'm Coach Roberto here from New York Roadrunners. Really happy to be here. And with me is my friend and I feel like partner this past week from HSS, Anil. We're going to be talking about marathon recovery. So if you ran the marathon yesterday, your body's probably speaking to you. And actually, if you spectated, I know I spectated and I put in half a marathon worth of walking. So my body's also speaking to me. But yeah, give us a shout out. Let us know where you're watching from, if you ran the marathon, and what questions you have. And we'll get to it. But Anil, just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, and we'll get cracking.
Hey everyone, my name is Anil Nandkumar. I'm physical therapist from Hospital for Special Surgery. Also strength and conditioning specialist as well. Been hanging out with you guys for years now, and love all these segments. But definitely ready to talk about all the accomplishment from yesterday.
Excellent. Thanks, Anil. Yeah, Anil and I were on stage on Friday, and we were talking about, soreness before the marathon and how to treat your body well. Well, now we're speaking about soreness after the marathon. So I have a couple of questions I'm going to be asking Anil, but of course, always want to hear from you out there. We've already, I was just at the pavilion at the finish line seeing runners. Some runners look like they're walking perfectly fine, like no issues. Some runners, you're like, yeah, you ran a marathon and then some. Stairs are not your friends. So Anil, the question for you, for those of us who did complete the marathon yesterday, what should their body be feeling like now? What's normal and why?
Yeah, I think normal is going to be just any form of muscle soreness. You know, anywhere from the lower body, even up into the back, and even in the neck and stuff too. You know, while kind of pushing yourself past to that finish line. So, but you know, the very simple thing is I love the marathon walk. Or the Frankenstein dance, as we call it in the clinic too. So I love watching everybody do that, because again, that means you accomplish something. So definitely, walking funny today is going to be a normal thing, but you should start to see that dissipate hopefully in the next couple of days, up to a week or so.
Excellent. And you mentioned the Frankenstein walk. So we watched even yesterday, which made sense, but certainly today I've seen a few runners going downstairs on the subway, and they're just struggling again, understandably. So can you explain what are micro tears and what are they and why is it that we're feeling that today?
Yeah, basically, that soreness that you feel after running, after working out, after doing anything really physical, are micro tears, and basically your body going through the normal response of a small controlled inflammatory process, in order to heal those micro tears. Micro tears are good because that's how you build muscle, or that's how you exert yourself. And so, what's happening today is that it's still micro tears, but there are much more micro tears happening in those muscles. So, therefore, there's a whole inflammatory process happening within those quads, and therefore that's why you can't go down the stairs today. It's similar to if anyone has ever had any knee surgery. For instance, the first thing that happens is your quad stops working. And so it's super hard to go down the stairs. That's the first thing that shuts down after a surgery. So it makes sense why it's the first thing that almost shuts down after you exerted yourself this much.
Great. Yeah, it's good to I'll get a better understanding, because anytime you hear the word tear, it just sounds like, like nobody wants that, but it's like micro tears are normal, whether you've run a marathon or you're working out, things like that. So, thank you for setting the record straight. So what's the best thing that runners could do today and this week to speed up recovery?
Yeah, I think definitely continuing to move. First and foremost, that you might feel sore today, but if you don't move today, you'll definitely feel sore tomorrow. So continuing to move, in whatever way that means, whether it just means walking around, doing simple housework, just to keep the body moving, whether that means going on a spin bike and just slowly riding a bit. Furthermore, some mobilization exercises, stretching, foam rolling. If you have, some fancy equipment like Game Ready or Normatec to help with, any swelling, that will all be beneficial. And actually, we're doing all of that stuff over at the pavilion at the HSS recovery zone. So you could definitely stop by. We'll be there taking care of everyone.
Cool. You mentioned the HSS recovery zone. You're obviously there today. What are the hours today, and will you be there tomorrow as well?
Yes, we'll be there tomorrow as well. I believe 8 to 5 today, 8 to 5 as well tomorrow. And of course, we're there, doing everything I said before, as well as answering, any questions that you might have. Just a moment ago, I had a couple runners ask me about, oh, I felt this at mile 6, but I pushed through, and now it really hurts me today. So we kind of worked through some diagnoses or potentially what could happen in the next couple of days. We also have physicians on staff there too. So for those acute injuries that really are those things that kind of raise the alarm a little bit, as maybe you've heard me talk about over this week or so, we have physicians on staff to help diagnose that a little bit better.
Yeah, excellent. One thing you mentioned, which I got a kick out of, is you said keep moving, which I'm on board for. Me, like, keep moving, doing house chores. I was thinking, like, if anything, I would use having run a marathon as a good excuse to get out of doing house chores. But I guess you're in the other camp. But yeah, before I'll continue asking questions, of course. But yeah, again, we want to hear from you. I can see a few questions and shout outs in the comments. So let us know where you're watching from. If you have any questions or comments, or even just let us know how the marathon went for you. So yeah, as far as for you, Anil, how should runners be focusing on their nutrition to get the most out of the recovery? And I say that with a caveat that I just heard one of my colleagues in the office that ran yesterday mention how they haven't eaten much since they finished the races because their stomach was a little bit upset during the run. It was a bit warmer than they're used to. Then they didn't have much of an appetite last night. So, now they're 12 plus hours removed and they still haven't really eaten much. So, which is a big part of recovery.
Sure. I've experienced that too. A lot of patients, a lot of my athletes and stuff, they're all saying, like, especially after yesterday, going through such a tremendous heat wave, how difficult it is to eat, and actually ingest anything. Of course, whatever is easily digestible for you is probably going to be the best method. But I think as much protein as possible to help with that recovery, to rebuild those muscular layers that are undergoing those micro tears. That would be number one. And of course, some simple carbs just to kind of get your energy back together too. But definitely protein, and of course, hydrating as much as possible. Replenishing water, but also replenishing as much electrolytes as possible too.
Excellent. I'll take a quick pause here. Let's see, read through some of the shout outs. We have Jasic saying hi from Club Rise to Run. Yesterday, they finished their 7th New York City marathon, and they're feeling good. We have Laura Monson from Dallas. Yes, legs are very sore today. Second time running New York. Shout out to that. And a quick question, I believe, from Jasic Burke saying, I have a pain in my Achilles area. That could be a reason from sciatica, or blood is not reaching it enough. So what do you reckon?
If I would, to be as polite as possible, I would say neither to those. But I think those sciatica symptoms can definitely reach down into that area. But as far as that localized Achilles pain, it's usually due to overuse of that Achilles, of that calf. While you're running, it could be, not having a really strong push off, especially as you're fatiguing. It could be also when you're landing, not really accepting force through the ground, again, as you have fatigue there. I think, it could be loosely related to those other two things, but it's probably just a separate issue.
All right. And then another question from Kathleen Lewandowski-Stefek saying, Thanks for the tips. Does the dehydration make it work because we are pushing harder? So I think as a typo, she's probably saying, does dehydration make it worse because we're pushing harder? So I think they're speaking about soreness and fatigue.
Absolutely. Soreness goes hand in hand with, hydration and nutrition too. And so let's just say in very simple terms, if your body is depleted of nutrients or depleted of just, water or lubrication there, it's going to kind of onset more of that soreness and even take longer for it to go away. So, the heat that we experienced yesterday will definitely play a factor into that. So I would just say continue to stay hydrated. People are taking like Epsom salt baths today, which is great in terms of muscle soreness. But I would also stay, hydrated while you're taking that bath too, because there is some research out there that says that salt kind of pulls away some of the hydration from your body, but it definitely helps with muscle soreness. So I would definitely do both, while you're in that bath. Maybe if you want, put some water in a fancy glass with an umbrella and, and make yourself feel good there. So, but yeah.
See, I like that sort of advice more than walk around and do house chores. I could get behind the little glass with the umbrella. So cool. Let's see. We have a couple of shout outs here. We had Edgar from East Harlem Runners. I saw him yesterday. Shout out. We have Melanie Kahn saying, "Hey, Coach Roberto." Volcano coming to you from 63rd Street in Manhattan in New York. We have JB, a finisher. And we have Victor saying, "Hello guys, yesterday I finished my 9th New York City Marathon for the first time. I had a blister in my foot." So that's not a question, just a comment, but I'm sure as you would probably say, Anil, that's something relatively common in those sort of conditions yesterday, yes?
Absolutely. Your foot's a little bit looser because it's hot and sticky and it's kind of rubbing around a little bit. So definitely take care of that blister.
Yeah. And then another question, again, I'll ask this question and then just keep giving shout outs. Let us know where you're watching from. Any questions you have for our expert, Anil. So we have Sharon Lakeman saying, "First time marathoner and finisher. Congratulations to you. Have a lot of pain in my calves. Could barely stand up or walk. Any advice on what's the most important for me to do right now?"
Yeah, if you're having a difficulty standing, again, this is kind of like a gray area a little bit. We would definitely want to see how things progress a little bit. So I would say definitely get your feet up, do some ankle pumps, and that's just simply, just going through the range of motion of your foot. By doing that, it's almost like pressing a gas pedal. You're pumping that calf mechanism there. Therefore, you're pumping the blood in the calf and in the rest of the leg to kind of help with some of that soreness or inability that calf is undergoing. So start with that first, and then again, if it persists like tomorrow or even the next day, then I would say maybe get it checked out. But for the most part, it just seems like you reached your goal right there.
Yeah. All right. And yeah, the thing too for Sharon is that soreness of some kind is absolutely normal. I go back to the question that we had for you, Neil, on Friday, I think at the expo, which is like the difference between soreness and pain or injury, and that's what you want to kind of stay on top of the next few days. But yeah, I can't imagine anybody, whether they won or they are final finisher, that isn't feeling some sort of soreness, the day after. So, yeah. So moving on, again, keep sending us your questions. I'll try to get to them. But Anil, so the day after the marathon, many runners say, or at least some runners say, "I want to run another one." How should runners approach their training cycle in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I think, especially what everyone just went through yesterday with the heat, I think it's definitely fine. Take that time off, regroup because, unfortunately, we can't predict Mother Nature. And a lot of us just didn't get the time that we wanted, yesterday. But, at least you finished, right? Or, at least you were out there at least. So definitely take the time to kind of recap yourself. I would say, the adage is like, every mile that you take, it's like a day off. type of thing. So, I would take a month off, right, and then kind of regroup from there. I know there are some races coming up, some short ones, so maybe you use that to kind of ease back into running. But for starting training again for another marathon, let's just say New York City next year, I would definitely start doing some light runs now, but don't think about that until we're many months in.
Yeah, and I guess a good question, because I answered the same sort of question earlier today by the finish line in real time, is, when we say a month off, everybody interprets that differently. Some people might be like, sweet, you could find me on the couch for the next 30 days. Some people think, I'm not going to run for a month, but I am going to hit the gym really hard. I'm going to hit the elliptical, like cross training, et cetera. So there might not be a right or wrong answer within reason, but what would you say as an expert and somebody who sees a lot of people with a lot of overuse injuries? What does a month off look like or should look like?
Yeah, so a month off to me is like almost like the week leading up to the marathon, where you're just focusing on active rest, cross training, but you're not overexerting yourself, you're not pushing yourself out there on the concrete, right? So pretty much maybe getting back into some strength training, some light strength training, maybe addressing anything that you feel hindered you during the race. So for instance, we're bringing up my tight hamstrings again, right? If I felt that was an issue, I might work on mobility of those hamstrings for like a week straight, with a focus of that, plus doing other things, and then maybe slowly working in some higher level things. So it's not a month off, meaning month on the couch, but it's more of recovery, a month of mental clarity, and a month to just get your body, I guess, well-rounded again, before you then start focusing on that one thing.
All right, excellent. Thanks for that clarification. Yeah, just wonderful. So the other thing too that's been unique in the last, I would say, maybe 2 years or two marathon cycles is, with the backdrop of COVID, a lot of the world marathon majors, other than New York, really switched their timeline. We typically have London and April back to back. In the spring, the last couple of years, we've had London, and in the spring, in autumn, and then also Berlin. And last year, I think we had that, Berlin, London. So many people try to run back to back to back marathons, and that's going to be the case even next year, where the timeline goes back to pre-pandemic times. So if you could talk to us about maybe the best way to approach those back to back, and because we do have some runners who ran New York and are doing Philly, which is in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, this is a real tricky situation, and I think just like what we've been dealing with for the last 2-3 years now, it's all unprecedented. So it's like that's why, like, I'm kind of okay with the fact that for those runners that are doing the back to back here, that maybe New York didn't go as well for you. You worked really hard at it, but weather conditions were non-optimal. So using Philly as kind of a bounce back thing, I would again take a good solid 5 to 7 days off, but in an active way, just to get yourself recovered again. But I think it's important that if you don't feel the same level of preparation that you felt going into New York, I would definitely be cautious of running Philly, or at least just go into it with expectations of if this is a 2-week gap. This is almost unheard of, and then therefore, like, I just want to just run the race. So I think it's a mindset thing over anything, and rather than trying to just kind of muscle through another race.
Yeah, that's great advice. And kind of piggyback on that, what we typically tell runners when they do back-to-back marathons, whether they're a month apart or 2 weeks, which, as you said, that's pretty close ranges. Ideally, you have an A race and a B race. Like maybe New York was your A race, your big goal, whether you're chasing a time or experience, and then Philly is going to be like a glorified long run, or just kind of the pressure's off. So if I feel really good, great. If not, no worries. So I would always say, have that, because it's really tough, whether it's 2 weeks apart or a month apart, to try to have that double peak, just because, as Anil just said, you're needing to take some time off to recover, absorb the run, the training, and everything, and then you're trying to ramp up again, which is pretty tough to do. So yeah, a couple of shout outs here. I'm seeing JB Ange, hi Roberto, Wing Faith, cheers. And they're in Paris, I believe. Otto is saying, hello everyone, what a race. First New York City Marathon and first marathon. Excuse me, it was amazing. I completed my 9+1 yesterday, and I'm already thinking about 2023. That is awesome. Congratulations. And yeah, we just addressed that people are thinking already about their next marathon. So Otto, you're not alone there. Yeah, keep sending us your questions and shout outs. Yeah, so for Anil, when should runners start thinking about really starting training again? Obviously, we said take a month off, but like some people are going to be heading into the holidays, and as it happens year after year, they just slip into it, and before you know it's January 2023, and people are like, new year, new you, new body, etc. New Year's resolution. But like, is there an optimal time of like, yes, take about a month off if you're not racing another marathon, but don't take off too much time because you don't want to lose that fitness? Or should we just like close the book November 7th and like see you sometime in January? Like what's the perfect window or ideal window as somebody who obviously is pretty active?
So yeah, that's a great question because there's many ways to take it. I think the best answer is really that everybody is like just super different of how they react, and you can see it today, right? There's some people walking around with no issues, and some people are struggling today. So same thing goes for returning back to running or training or things like that. Depending on how you feel, what your mindset is like, what your fitness is before and after. So I think that for the most part, you want to stay relatively active because the holidays come around, and I can't tell you enough, especially around Thanksgiving, when there's always a turkey trot or something like that ends up happening, and either we get a little competitive during that turkey trot, or maybe you just haven't really run since this big race, and then you kind of hop into this another race for fun, but then you develop some kind of injury that happens too. So that's why I would advocate as much as possible, stay active. Whatever that means to you, but at the same time, I think setting goals are probably the best thing. So some of my patients, yes, they're I did my first marathon. I don't even want to think about running again. So then maybe in the new year, yes, I start again a whole new training cycle, starting from scratch. People like to do that. Personally, I think it's best to ease into activity, stay a little active. That way you don't have to get active, So really it's how you kind of present, how you're feeling today even, and then you kind of extrapolate from there.
Cool. I actually have a follow-up question for that before I get to the comments, because I've been asked this in the past, but and again, ballpark is nothing is exact, but how long can a runner go before they lose fitness? So let's say I trained really well for the last three months or so for New York. I ran New York yesterday. Obviously, I'm going to take a month off to recover, but how long can you go where you finally start to lose the fitness that you generated in those prior months? Because that's also a fear of most people, especially when we say try to take a month off.
Yeah, the textbook answer as far as like gaining muscle strength and things like that is anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, whatever you want to call it. So it would take about that long too. However, really it's much sooner. At least what I've found anecdotally too. It's like if you're literally doing nothing, you'll definitely speed up. That fitness will actually you'll lose it pretty quickly, about 2 to 4 weeks or so. Just because like those muscles have been training so hard, and then all of a sudden you're telling them to rest, you're telling them not to work as hard anymore, and they will listen to you. They will literally just stop working, and then, but, for those athletes that, really train, stay active, maybe not run as hard, it's going to take a lot longer for those same fibers to, turn into other fibers. So, I would say anywhere from a 4 to 8 week range, but really just stay active as much as possible.
All right, that's super helpful. Thank you for that. Yeah, this question comes from the most unique name I've seen thus far. Not sure if it's a real name or stage name, but it's Jelly Beanie Judy Sprav. Are marathoners more prone to stress fractures? So obviously you see loads of runners and athletes and people daily. What's your take on this?
So the stress fracture is it can present as a physical fracture, but really it's a built-up pressure pocket that acts like a fracture. So yes, I would say marathon runners are a little bit more prone to stress fractures just because of the repetitive pounding. Not only just running, but you're doing literally the same motion every single time, as opposed to, let's say, a basketball player that might shoot 1,000 shots in one spot, but he or she is still moving a little differently, right? So in running, you're constantly pounding the same joints, the same muscles at the same time with the same force for the most part. And then you extrapolate that by, let's say, not having the best running form, or by having some weak link in the chain of your body where, you have some kind of deviation happen, then more force, more pressure gets into that area. So long story short, yes, you are more prone to stress fractures. However, they can happen for any reason. Overtraining, or sometimes genetics or nutrition can also play a factor in it. So that it's really hard to prevent it, other than doing what we can control, which is proper strength training, proper training in general, and focusing on the right form.
All right, thank you. And that Jelly Beanie, turns out that's not their birth name. Their real name is Sabine, which I believe is a French name. Lovely, but thank you. And they're from New York City. So setting the record straight, there's no real Jelly Beanie out there, at least on a birth certificate that I know of. But yeah, so we have Crystal asking, hello from Philly, first time New York City marathoner and finisher. Congratulations. How many days of soreness is okay? Should I be concerned if I'm still sore on Wednesday? I feel like there's an easy answer, but you're the pro, Anil.
There's no real timeline for that, so I think, personally, it's like, you did this marathon, but you've been training for it for weeks, for months, right? So, however long it took you to recover from your longest run, maybe add a couple more days to that too. Again, I think even up to a week, that soreness can linger, but you should really start to see it decrease after day 3 or so, day 4 maybe. You should really see a decrease. You're going to still be sore, but it's not going to nearly be as bad.
Yeah, great answer. Just to show how much of a marathon brain I have, or the fatigue of it, even though I didn't run it, is the next question coming to us from Alicia is, how long should you wear compression socks? And before I even read it, I was thinking maybe up to your calf, up to your knee, which is obviously, I was thinking long, like the length of the socks, but obviously they're going to step back from my marathon brain and they're wondering how long should you wear it? I'm assuming, hours in the day and things like that. So Anil, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I think, if you've never worn them before, now would not be the time to start. Just because, again, like, especially if this is your first time running a marathon, you just don't know how your body's going to react to that. But if you are, used to wearing them, I think up to, 6 hours or so of a full day, you can. I like to kind of do them in cycles, like an hour on, hour off type of thing. But I can't lie, when I'm, working a full day in the clinic and I know it's going to be a busy day, and I put those compression socks on. It lasts the whole day, and it definitely helps, right? So I think it really depends on what your activity is going to be. But I think starting grading of like 2 hours on, an hour off, or something like that. But probably no more than about 6 hours or so at a time.
Yeah, and I guess it's a follow up to that, and not trying to put you on the spot or get super medical or technical, but it's my understanding that there's grades to compression socks, correct? So like I could buy them at local Dwayne Reed, Walgreens, CVS type place, but even then, like there's different grades. So maybe could you talk about that, because I'm not sure if this user is aware of that, or they could just pick up what's qualified as compression socks from like their local running store as well.
Sure. Yeah. I think what you don't want to do is go to your running store, your pharmacy, or whatever, and say, I need compression socks, and I need the heaviest duty compression socks right now. Because again, you really don't know how your body is going to react, especially after, such a great did yesterday. So I always start with 15 millimeters of mercury to about, I think it's 15 to 20 or 25. And then from there, you can, increase as needed. But truly, you probably don't need more than that. And again, the compression starts with the most compression in the foot and ankle area, and it kind of leads upwards, and so therefore, you want to make sure that it's comfortable, right? You want to make sure that, yes, it's going to be tough to put on, but at the end of the day, it's going to help you.
Yeah, I love that you ended with that part, because in my head I was thinking how with some of my compression socks in the past, I have such a workout just getting it over my foot and my ankle, and I don't even have like giant ankles, but it's so just, I don't know, compressed, I guess I would say, in the ankles. So for those of you who have never worn compression socks before, you're thinking about it, as Anil just said, that is a feature of it. They also do sell, which I'm sure Anil, like the compression sleeves. So I'm not sure if you would recommend a sleeve versus a sock. Obviously, you mentioned the percentage or milligrams of mercury and things like that. But is there one that's better than the other for people who maybe don't want to have a workout over their foot?
Yeah. So I think the socks are, for what they are, for that foot and ankle, calf complex there. The socks can be a little tricky at times, because you always want to expose the toes, to make sure that you have adequate circulation. And so sometimes with the socks, you might not get that. However, with the sleeves, you can get that, that safety feature of it. But sometimes the sleeves aren't as comfortable, right? So they're kind of the way they're cut a little bit, they can kind of dig into the skin and cause a little irritation. At least that's what my patients have told me. And then, but I think the sleeves work great for some localized swelling that you might have. So, for instance, that knee swelling, or if you want to go up into your upper extremities, definitely for like elbow or anything like that. Those work very well for those types of joints. But for foot and ankle, I think the best thing would be socks.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, a couple more shout outs, and I think we'll be wrapping up unless there's any other questions. So yeah, we have Delmas saying bonjour with the French flag. So I'm assuming they're either watching from France or they came to the marathon, ran from France. We have Karen saying thank you. Facebook user laughing out loud. Glad you're getting some enjoyment, entertaining. Okay, I think there's a question here saying from Alicia, if you're not sore after 24 hours, does it mean that you won't be as sore as they say? Can you still get super sore after 48 hours? Also, can you alternate cold baths and hot baths if you feel sore? So number of questions there.
Yeah, I think if you're not sore or not that sore after 24 hours, there is you can still get delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS for short, and that usually kicks in on the second or third day. So definitely be on the lookout for that. The same things apply. Even if you're not that sore or whatnot, still move around. Still do the housework, Roberto, so, still do all those things, right? So, the baths, things like that. the hot and cold contrast baths they work fantastic too. So they definitely help with a lot of soreness or swelling, anything like that.
All right, excellent. I'm going to have Anil come to my house and help me out with my housework as part of marathon training or recovery. But yeah, thank you so much, Anil. Always a pleasure, always fun, always informative. You're obviously a pro, despite your chronic sore or tight hamstrings. We got to remedy that at some point. I'm not going to let that go. But yeah, thank you to you runners who tune in every time we do these chats, who have for the last week come up to us coaches, HSS colleagues at the expo, the pavilion, wherever you've seen us in town in the city, just to thank us for the advice. This is really a team effort. We put on the race. Anil and his crew make sure the runners are really prepared, injury prevention wise. But yeah, it's a team effort, and this marathon is just a fantastic celebration of running globally, locally, and yeah, we couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your question. Continue to there's Mariana. That's one of your clients. Shout out to Mariana. But yeah, thank you so much. Anil, any last parting words?
I think and what I shared with to some of my patients too, it's just that you worked so hard for this moment, and I know a lot of us are kind of kind of bent over the fact of you're not doing so well or as well as we may have wanted to during this race, but it's okay, and you finished it. I think that is the most important thing. And I think now you can start to prepare better, prepare for the elements better, or even if it's just going to be a normal, ideal condition, you can appreciate that more next time, So definitely, I think it's time to, after a big, lifetime achievement like this, take some time, reflect on it, and really think, go through the whole process and appreciate that process too.
All right. Couldn't have said it better myself. And I'll just piggyback as we close off that, saying that every runner I've come across today at the pavilion by the finish line, everybody's just been so positive, whether they had a lifetime best or not ideal finish time. And it just goes to show that distance runners, marathoners are so resilient because you have to be to get through the training, but they're also just such positive people. They're able to go through this hardship of training, experience the race, and then just put a positive spin on it. So thank you for being you. Thank you, runners. You could catch Anil next week at my house doing those chores that he's trying to have me do. But yeah, we're going to close this show now. Go out, recover, celebrate, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.